Can you tell me what you see as the key points of the action, the takeover? Tell me about the arrest, the feeder march, and so on.
Sure. So I can give a rundown of what happened. There was a planning meeting several nights before the occupation in which members of different student groups and individual students, especially graduate students, were present, determining when to launch the occupation. The demands were not very clear at the time, though they didn't really need to be. There was a general feeling that the university was being mismanaged, that our voices were not being heard, and in order for us to obtain greater decision-making power within the institution, then more militant action was called for. However, at this planning meeting, there were quite a few disagreements. Many members of the RSU, the Radical Student Union, which is the organization of which I'm a part, believed we shouldn't do the occupation at all, that it was too close to the end of the semester, and that we would be repressed. There were other feelings regarding, not having an adequate base, not having done the educational work, not having organized the dorms. There were those feelings, and then there were those who wanted to do it right away, that evening, and then there were those who wanted to wait until Thursday evening and spend the day of Wednesday organizing. And what ultimately ended up happening was an interesting compromise. The occupation did happen. It didn't happen Tuesday night. It happened Wednesday night. Now, I was not there within the first hour or so of the occupation. I showed up about, I believe, 2 hours into it, I believe. I can't recall exactly. But from what I know, the graduate students and members of the Radical Student Union and LISA and other organizations and other students who shared the concerns of the organizers showed up in the 65 Fifth Avenue cafeteria and declared the building occupied, and they barricaded the doors of the building, and more students began flooding in. People were making phone calls and sending emails and then contacting the press and bringing more students to the occupation. Over the course of several hours, the building filled up, and eventually, the police were called in by the administration, and security guards and the police were used to attempt to remove students and to break through the barricades, and this ultimately failed, though several students were pushed out of the building. Several were arrested, but the barricades did hold, and police were unable to actually end the occupation then and there. The occupation lasted for essentially 2 days, and the key points would include the large solidarity demonstration outside, in which students were standing in solidarity with those occupying the building, and it included students from the new school as well as City College and other schools in the CUNY system. And probably the highest point through the whole occupation, it was on the second day of the occupation, and it was when there was a large solidarity march it had to be of more than 200 students, took over Fifth Avenue, and this, the takeover of the street was broken up, and I don't know exactly how it happened, but the students managed to get inside of the building and evade, capture by the police and security guards and join the occupation. And this, tripled our numbers and allowed us to more effectively hold the building, and certainly sent the administration into further crisis, worrying how far this would go, and felt compelled. We commanded a high level of power at that moment, especially after the solidarity demonstration was able to move inside and join us in the occupation.
Excuse me. Who was negotiating for Kerrey and the school administration?
There were several negotiators. I unfortunately I don't have all of their last names on me at the moment, but it was Kate Griffin and Yotam. They were both from the Radical Student Union, and Chelsea and Fatma, and they were two graduate students from the New School for Social Research.
But who was negotiating for the other side, for Kerrey and the school administration?
Well, Kerrey came to the demonstration, do the occupation, and initially, the students refused to meet directly with him, and I believe his name is Bill Hurst. I'm sorry, I don't have the information on me at the moment, but he's a psychology professor who was called in by the administration to negotiate with the students. And from what I know, from what he saw during the occupation in terms of the police abusing their authority and abusing their power and mistreating students, and seeing the way the administration was reacting, the negotiator is supposed to be unbiased, but clearly the students were in the right in this situation. So that's an interesting dynamic to note that took place during the negotiations, from what I know.